Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm doing something a little bit different, actually very different, and it's the start of a new kind of video that I want to do on the channel that I'm going to call AdventureCraft. Now what AdventureCraft is basically I'm going to be talking you through the creative process of how I come up with a one-shot adventure. Now today I'm going to be coming up with a one-shot adventure for Call of Cthulhu, the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game by Chaosium, which is just a system that I'm quite familiar with, although the adventure I'm coming up with today is fairly system agnostic, so you can use it in World of Darkness, you could workshop it to use it in sort of any modern system, because it's well, not modern, but like 1920s up, I would say. But it is specifically designed for Call of Cthulhu. And I am going to call this adventure the Puppetmaster. Now, this is just a term that popped into my head the other day, and I just thought, wow, it would be quite cool to build an adventure around the idea of a puppet master. So, my only things that I have prepared so far is the term the puppet master, and my opening scene, which I've had an idea, it's something I've wanted to do for a while. And basically, the idea of the opening scene is the PCs are in a bar, and there's a car crash outside. So they rush outside to see what's going on. And there is a car that has crashed, and the car was chasing after a man wearing like tatty robes. And what happens is the driver of the car gets out, unloads his gun into the man, and then turns the gun on himself. Now the player characters, I want to give them a choice as to who they can try and help. So let's kind of mind map it out, and then we'll just add things as we go. So let's say scene one, and I'm just going to call this the car crash outside the bar. Okay, so we have this scene, we've got the car that comes and crashes outside the bar. Now what I think might be quite cool is if we can we force our players to have a moral dilemma as to who they choose to help. They can either try and stop the guy from committing suicide because they see that's going to happen. So this can be just say help the driver, or they could alternatively help the sort of the victim. Let's call him that, the victim. Okay, so basically they see this going on, the victim gets shot, they can either help him or they can go and stop the driver from committing suicide. Now let's think about what the situation could be. Well, I have the term the puppet master, so I kind of want that to revolve around who the main baddie is going to be in the story, the main antagonist. And I quite like the idea of like a Geppetto kind of character who's gone a little bit mad, and maybe he's somehow either created like puppets that are like voodoo dolls, or found a way to control people to do what he wants. And something I've wanted to do is, normally, you know, when the player characters encounter these people are quite alternative, quite different, you know. But what might be quite cool is if the driver of the car, the person who's attacking and trying to kill this guy, is an investigator, like the player characters, and maybe he's just gone insane from this case that he's working on. So that could be quite cool. So let's make him Jim, the private eye. So Jim could maybe have been onto the case of trying to find this puppet master character, and that'll sort of lead us to the victim, who's maybe like an assistant to the puppet master. So let's call him what's a good name for an assistant? Let's just call him, we've got Jim, let's call him David the assistant. So let's say that the puppet master is our main bad guy, main antagonist, and he is creating voodoo doll puppets, and he is using those to commit bad deeds. So let's say let's make it like, let's not make it grand, not everything has to be grand. Let's say that there's a theater in town that cancelled his puppet show, for example. So he's going to use the dolls to commit murders of the theatre. Oh, that's good. Of the theatre management. That could be quite cool. And how is he getting his power? It's through worshipping or selling his soul even. Selling his soul to a dark lord. Let's do like a pentagram, make it spooky. Okay, so we have the Puppetmaster, who's our main antagonist. He's creating voodoo doll-like puppets, which he's using to commit murders of the theatre management, and he is selling his soul to a dark lord. Now, so this guy is very close to the Puppetmaster. So he is his assistant. And let's say that Jim the Private Eye was onto this situation. He hadn't quite found the Puppetmaster yet, but he had found this guy who was maybe at a scene of a murder, and Jim the Private Eye was chasing him from the scene of a murder. Chasing him from the crime scene. Okay, so why would he be at the crime scene then if he had, if the Puppetmaster could just do these things through voodoo? Well, let's say the Puppetmaster has to like put something on the person, maybe like one of those little like four-way handles of puppets, or maybe if he ties a bit of puppet string around the person, maybe around their hand, or puts it over their neck, or something like that, something subtle. Maybe if he just ties like a little knot and puts that into their pocket, then he can, then he has like a connection between them and the puppet. So maybe the victim, David the assistant, was going to remove, so he has in his hand a knot. That's cool. So he's gone and now he's tried to remove the knot from the victim. Jim the Private Eye spotted him and went after him. Little did Jim know that he had had a knot slipped into his pocket, and that's why he then chose to commit suicide, because he has the knot in his pocket. So what's quite cool is, what I'm going to do is, let's have the player characters have to make a choice who they're going to help. Either they can try and stop Jim the Private Eye from committing suicide, which is not going to happen because he'll commit suicide anyway, or he can run to help David the assistant. Either way, they'll find a knot. But what I want to have is, like, if they help him, then the car explodes and kills David the assistant, even though he's probably already dead. And if they help him and drag him away from the car, he's like a gibbering madman, and Jim the Private Eye commits suicide. So they don't know that either way, they'll end up hopefully finding a string, which will be like the first clue to help them on their way. But it will make them think like, oh man, what would have happened differently if we had helped David the assistant, or if we had helped Jim the Private Eye. So that's quite cool. So the knot is the clue. So there's a knot here and there's a knot here. So either way that they go, they'll be able to find a knot. And then that knot will help, somehow they can research that knot maybe and find that it is a knot used in puppeteering. Okay. What they'll also find on Jim the Private Eye, and I think this might be another way to go around it, is on his person they can find his identification. Can find his identification. So maybe he's a cop, maybe he's a detective, maybe he's a private eye. That could be interesting. So maybe what we need to do, yes, okay, so this is what's going to happen. No explosion, because I want them to be able to find the cop's his identification, and that'll help them figure out that he was on a case. He was on a case investigating the theatre. Oh, this could be quite cool. The theatre suicides. So because they're voodoo dolls, they're not murders. All these sort of high-ranking people in the theatre are just committing suicide. That could be quite cool. A nice twist in the tale, or a knot in the tail, if you'll pardon the expression. Okay, so we have the basic outline of our first scene. So the Puppetmaster, okay, I'm going to move on to a new page quickly and start writing this up a little neater. I'll go back to that page now in a moment. So, scene 1. Okay, the bar. Cool. So then from there, our investigators can either they'll either end up going to the private investigator's office, so the PI's office. They can go to somewhere to research the rope, research the knot, or they can go to because they won't know about the theatre murders at this point. They'll go somewhere to research the knot, or they could maybe go try and talk to people in town, or if they research the knot, where would you find out something about rope? They could go to like maybe a rope shop, someone that knows something about rope. So either way, that'll lead them to realizing that there is that this rope is used in puppeteering. Okay. So now what I was thinking is, well, we also need a reason that the investigators would care. Why wouldn't they just say, nope, I'm going home, done, this has got nothing to do with me, this is a little out of hand. Let's think. Okay, so they're outside the bar. Is there somewhere we could make this personal? Maybe let's see. Okay, so if they say nope, okay, I'm going to make a little box here. If they say nope, then the wife of the private eye can implore them for assistance. So that's quite cool. So if they say nope, and I mean, look, in most role-playing games, they know, like, okay, this is the path I want you to go down. But if they want to be difficult, then we can have the wife implore them for assistance and offer them a hefty reward. And if that still doesn't work, then you just throw dice in their face for like care. Okay, so the PI's office. Here they can talk to his wife, and find out about the case, Here we've done that. Okay, so what will then happen is they'll know that that the private investigator was investigating the theatre. So what he could maybe do is, if they then go from there to the theatre, then they could speak to some people, speak to surviving management. And these people are scared. Okay, they may know something. They may know something about the leads. So if the private investigator had told them that he had figured it had something to do with the puppeteers, who knows? Okay, so what should we call the Puppetmaster? Let's call him Damien Rosenberg. That's a tip of the hat to my favorite board game designer. Okay, Damien Rosenberg, aka the Puppetmaster. He's doing terrible things. Okay. So guys, sorry, this is very stream of consciousness now, but it's just to kind of give you an insight into my process, which is, I know, probably not the best way of doing it, but it is fairly creative and it helps me get decent results. Okay, so scene 1, the bar. PI's office, they can talk to the wife, find out about the case, speak to the surviving management who are scared. They may know something about their leads. They can research the knot, which tells them about puppeteering, but doesn't make the connection to the theatre. So eventually they're going to actually have to do both of these things. and eventually they'll know, okay, so there was a puppet show, then they can research puppeteering, and then it'll lead them to the recently cancelled show. Okay, so at that point, they should be getting quite close to the climax of the scene, or finding their antagonist. What I want to do then is I want to start adding some horror. So let's look at this thing and see how we can add some horror elements into this thing. Well, let's say maybe if after the PI's office or after the theater, they get into their car, they find a puppet of themselves. That could be quite cool. They get into their car, or they go home or back to their office, and there's a puppet of them there with like a scary note saying scary stuff written in like magazine letters. And that's cool because that could be like a player handout that you come up with and give it to the players. So we've got the bar, PI's office. So I'm trying to inject a bit of horror into this, which is important. So they find a puppet of themselves, scary stuff written in magazine letters, maybe inside one of their pockets, inside their pockets, they find a knot and a note, so, like saying something like, "Don't make me use this." That could be spooky. Ooh, very exciting. So we've got kind of the way. So here's the process. There's a crash outside the bar. They can choose to help the driver or help the victim. Either way, they'll find that the driver is a private investigator. They'll find that there is a knot in his pocket, and that's why he committed suicide. And they will find that David, the assistant, has a knot in his hand, which he's clenching tightly like a fist, because he's gone and removed that from one of the scenes of the suicide. All right. If they say nope, the wife will contact them of the private investigator, Jim, and tell her. She can even tell them that they were working on a murder around the theater. So they'll go to the theater, speak to the surviving management, who are scared, so they'll need to make some persuasive roles there to help get them to talk. And after that, they'll find out something about a puppet show. So why would they need this? They'll need that to make a connection there. So the management will say, look, we're scared and we don't know who could be doing this. Do you have any other ideas? Then they'll say, oh, like, did you find anything that might help you lead you to the person who's responsible? Then they'll say, okay, we found the knot. Then they'll say, we don't know anything about that. Maybe you should find out. So there will be a reason for them to do both of these things. And they can go talk to a librarian, get a book on rope or knots or whatever. Okay, scary stuff. Inside their pockets, they tie, yeah, okay. So after all of that's done, we are at the climax, which is where they go to the puppet maker's shop at night. The puppet maker's shop. And if you think about this is quite cool because puppets are spooky already. I mean, if you think about movies like The Conjuring, that stuff is scary as hell. So they'll go in, it'll be dark, and they'll try not to make a noise, so they'll have to be stealthy. And as they're walking around, they can swear that swear that the puppets are moving when they aren't looking. That's spooky. So they could swear that the puppets are moving when they aren't looking. So as they turn away, they won't be able to see the puppets, and then as they turn back, or what could be quite cool is like say they want to look at the puppets, but they can't. Their heads are like literally forced away. And then when they can finally move their heads, the puppets are closer. That could be sneaky as hell. So, spooky. They find the Puppetmaster under the shop. So there could be like maybe a trap door. So under the shop there's a trap door that leads to the altar room where we find Damien worshipping an elder god. And okay, so they can kill him. That could be quite cool because he goes mad. He's insane. Tries to kill them. I've got an awesome twist now. Okay, so he goes insane. He tries to kill them and they kill him. He's easy to kill. Easy to kill. But suddenly the lights start flashing. And ropes come down from the ceiling and wrap themselves around his arms. And he stands up and he's like, his animated corpse is like a puppet and it's moving towards them. So how do they kill him? They need to rush around. They can either, okay, so he reanimates as a puppet. Then they can either try and kill him, which is hard, or they can find a puppet that looks like him and destroy it. Oh, cool. So basically, if they find that, how would they know to use that? Well, let's have over here, Dark Stealthy, they find puppets of the theater staff as well as the private eye. And then they could have the string wrapped around their neck, all except PI and one staff member could have the string wrapped around their neck. Their neck. So that could be the string that they need to slip into his pocket or onto his person to be able to kill him. So those are the two options. I think this is going to be fun. It's a little one shot and it's a little bit rough around the edges, but I just wanted to show you how the process works of how I come up with all this stuff. So I hope that was helpful, and I'd love for you to take this idea, refine it, work on it, throw in some suggestions into the comment section below, and I plan to run this very soon, and I will record it and put it up on the channel so you can see how it went. But anyway, I hope that you like this format. Please like, subscribe, comment, do all of that good stuff, and until next time, thank you very much for watching. Love you lots. Bye-bye.